Stage is yours.
Great. Okay, so thank you so much, everyone. One sec, I'm just going to share my screen and hopefully everyone can hear some nice, peaceful music. And of course, my slideshow has stopped working because it's Friday and everyone is tired. Okay. There we go. All right, can we all hear some nice chill music? We got some nice videos going on.
I
Great.
feel
Okay.
relaxed already. Let's
Good.
go.
Yes, exactly what we want. So I'm actually going to turn off my camera so that we're not distracted and we'll kind of kick off and get started. So it's going to be very, very different to all the typical kind of talks you guys see. So go with the flow. If you don't like it, that's fine. If you do like it, let me know. I'm very open to feedback. Okay, so I hope everybody is in a comfortable seat. We've all taken some deep breaths. We're all highly hydrated, and we're ready to talk a little bit about a topic that causes quite a bit of anxiety with IT admins. If any of you have been to any of my talks previously, you'll know they're usually very high energy, very fast, very exciting. I'm going to do my best to try and slow it down a little bit today, go through things at a very easy pace. We'll have some really nice imagery, some nice music, so hopefully everybody's feeling really relaxed and we'll get started. So for anybody who does not know me, I am Emma Darcy. I use she, her pronouns, and I am a senior solution architect and also a Microsoft Business Applications MVP. And I'm based here in Center City, Philadelphia, and I have been with the wonderful Hitachi Solutions crew since April, so I'm fairly new to the team. But I have been doing work in the Power Platform and Dynamics space specifically, for about 12 years now, and Power Platform for about 3. So really excited today to talk to you a little bit about governance, and that is going to be governance for the Power Platform. I know there are a lot of Dynamics people here today as well. So Dynamics is covered under the Power Platform if you're not familiar with that concept. So a lot of things today will also be applicable to your situation. Okay, so first and foremost, let's talk a little bit about the word governance. And it's a word that can really strike a lot of fear in the hearts of many IT admins. It can be a very daunting thing to think about. I imagine when I was an IT admin and we had accounting coming trying to implement software, we'd have to think about integrations and support and time. How do we govern this? Who's going to own it? It can be extremely heart racing and very stressful. But governance, really at the center of it, is all about making a safe space for makers, allowing people to grow and develop their Power Platform skills in a way that's not going to impact the business, but also in a way that's not going to feel restrictive to the individuals. When we get to the core about it, we actually start to see some development with our makers. We get to see the flourishment of what they can do, and it really becomes a very beautiful thing that the organization can encompass. And a great way to think about governance is think about the first time you learned to ride a bike. You probably had training wheels. I very much hope you had a helmet or you had somebody there with you when you were learning to ride the bike. And you would have also had somebody to hold you up as you grew and you learn. And then as you got better, things started to happen. Your training wheels came off. And then as the person held you up on your bike, you were able to go by yourself and you were able to ride as far as you wanted. You were able to do all these things because you had a safe space in which to learn. And when we think about governance, we can apply a very similar concept to that. We're putting guardrails in place that are going to protect our makers and also boost their confidence as they grow. But we're also ensuring that the organization is able to grow and be protected when all of our makers are learning in this safe space. So now we're going to talk about what is important and why it's important that we have a safe space for these makers, and how is it that we can apply these guardrails to allow people to grow and flourish in this environment. So why do we need to create this very safe space? Think for a second about the organization that you are in. Think about what are the things that the organization could not survive without. That one key thing that we should all be thinking about is the people. Without people, we do not have an organization. We cannot sustain the organization. People, human folk, they're all the absolute heart and lifeblood of an organization. And as we've seen through the last challenging 18 months or so, the need for humans is more prevalent now than ever. It's become very difficult to find these resources and to keep them. So it's really important that we create a safe space for these people to learn and grow and develop. And research has also shown that in order to retain individuals, they need to feel important and they need to feel that they can carry out their tasks in an efficient way that works for them. It's really important that we nurture and allow them to grow within the organization. And this is very much where we're going to talk about Power Platform and how Power Platform helps us retain and keep our happy people in the organization. If we provide people with a platform to build their own solutions, we can start to empower them to do even more within their workforce. We can start to automate a lot of manual processes and some of those mind-numbing tasks that were done on paper previously. We're able to free up people to focus on significantly more important tasks, allowing their creativity and their innovation to start to flourish. And giving this power to people at the heart of our organization, not only is it going to help keep our individuals happy, it also gives back another really precious commodity to an organization, something that you cannot purchase, something that you cannot get back, and that's time. So by empowering our people to build solutions that they can go and create by themselves, it's going to allow us more time to innovate, create, and be more productive. And I think one of the people that very much embodies this spirit, or one of the people I've had the pleasure of meeting throughout my time in the Power Platform community, is a really good friend of mine, and probably a name everyone knows very well by the name of Sumit Seni at Heathrow Airport. And if you don't know Sumit's story, it's actually incredible. I highly recommend everyone take some time to have a look at it. Basically, Sumit first discovered the Power Platform when Heathrow was undergoing an initiative to digitize processes at the airport. And one night after he put his kids in bed and he was kind of exploring these new digital tools that were available to him, he actually came across the Power Apps icon and he was really intrigued and wanted to know a little bit more. And after doing a couple of training sessions, reading things online, and again, this was very much in the infancy of the Power Platform. So this is a person who's never really been exposed to a ton of technical things. He was able to build his first app. And when you ask him about how he felt when he built that first app, he's going to tell you he felt very empowered. He felt super smart. He was able to build an application that was going to improve the experience of the 220,000 people that walk through that airport every single day. So when we think about that, we think about what the Power Platform can do. It makes sense that we want to allow people access to this incredible platform, but again, by creating that safe space for them to do so. By allowing people this access, we can have a massive impact on not only the individuals at the organization, but also the individuals that that organization serves. So how do we exactly create that safe space? And what are the key things we need to be thinking about when we create that safe space? So the most important thing is needing to allow makers the freedom to discover and learn in that safe organization. How do we create that safe space? Well, first and foremost, as we mentioned earlier, we need to put those guardrails in place before our makers can take those first steps. When we think about a child that we're putting on that bike that we mentioned earlier, we would not put that child on a bike without any training wheels, without a helmet, without somebody there to watch them take those first steps in their cycle. And the same thing goes for our makers. We're not going to allow our makers access to the organization's precious data to learn, which would put only the makers at a disadvantage, but also puts the organization at risk as a whole. So we need to ensure that we create those environments in which the makers can grow, and also an environment in which the makers can develop their confidence in the platform. So when you think about the first time you maybe fell off your bike or something like that, or your confidence was knocked the first time you tried something, you need to have someone there or a way for you to get up on your feet and give it a go again. And without those guardrails or without that support, the power platform is not going to develop and flourish. So we need to put the training wheels on by implementing designated learning environments that have strict data loss prevention policies in place. And by doing that, the maker now feels that they have complete freedom to grow without being restricted or without worrying that they're going to impact the business or cause some kind of detrimental harm to data sets. Their creativity and innovation will start to develop from here, and it's going to be supported and encouraged in a way for them to very much flourish in that safe space. So going back to that time you first fell off your bike and it knocked your confidence, can you think back to that time and did you have someone there to pick you up and encourage you to try again? Well, again, that same thing is going to go for, that same principle is going to go for our makers. We have to give them the support that they need to take those first steps. And we're also going to provide them with the assistance and tools that they need in case they get stuck. We very much want makers to feel supported. And when you have your supported makers, they're going to feel like inspired makers. And inspiration and innovation breeds creativity and productivity in the end. And it's going to benefit everybody. It's going to benefit our people that are making, and it's going to benefit the organization as a whole. Those early stages are absolutely vital to growing our maker community within our organization. We have to provide them with training, things like app in a day, or hackathons that can be run within the organization, allow people to start to express their creative freedom, but also to build applications or automations that are going to make their day-to-day lives much more productive and easy. So imagine something that we do every day. Maybe we wash the dishes every day, or we do laundry every day. And then when you think about some of the tools that have allowed us to automate those processes, like our dishwashers or our washing machines, that's freeing us up time to be able to go and do other things. The Power Platform is very similar in that regard. We're allowing people to free up that time to be inspired, to create more innovative processes, and to be more present in what they actually do in their everyday job. The more a maker feels supported and encouraged, the better the Power Platform is going to be, and it's going to grow at the organization. And again, the more impactful those solutions are going to end up being. So now we've seen how great the platform can be and where we can inspire and support our makers. When we think about these things, it all sounds fantastic. The makers are going to go out and they're going to have a great time. They're going to be supported. They're going to have guardrails. They're going to build these incredible apps. We're going to create amazing power users that end up on the stage at Microsoft and just talk about these incredible things that they've built. But we also now need to take a step back and think about the people that are going to be implementing the Power Platform as a whole. And this is very much our IT admins, people that are going to be implementing and training and creating those guardrails and making those safe spaces. We have to also ensure that our IT admins are available to create those guardrails, but also we do not want to put additional burden on them. As we talked about earlier, resources are really hard to come by right now, and IT admins are stretched thinner than ever, especially with the move of digitization in our meetings. More people need to be here to support teams, to support remote working systems. And when we add on the extra burden of a platform they now need to implement, it can become very overwhelming. So did you know that a typical landscape or typical Power Platform landscape is very, very interesting? 80% of solutions that are built on a Power Platform landscape are typically productivity apps or important apps. Basically apps that if they go down, the whole organization is not going to be impacted. The 20% that are remaining are things like your ERP systems, your CRM systems, things that are crucial to allowing the organization to run at its absolute optimum capacity. So it makes sense then that we ensure our limited IT resources are focused on the 20% rather than the 80%. And that's very much what we talk about when we want to implement governance. It's the safe space for makers, but also relieving the burden of supporting those makers on IT. So now we understand the why. We need to take a look at what it is that we're going to do to implement those tools. And it's pretty vital that we use the right tools for the job. And there are so many tools available for us to help reduce down that burden on IT and really help nurture those self-sufficient makers. One of those tools, if you haven't already heard of it, I highly encourage everyone to take a look at this later on today, is the Center of Excellence Starter Kit from Microsoft. And it's very much a solution that includes a vast array of customizable tools that gives admins a 360 complete picture of the Power Platform, which is going to help them to see who is making what are they making, what connectors are they using. It's a really over-encompassing tool to show us absolutely everything that can be used to implement a really solid governance plan. It is important to note that it is called a starter kit for a reason. So while we ensure that our makers are feeling independent, supported, and encouraged, we also have to ensure that the tools being implemented are the correct tools for the job. Like anything worth waiting for in life, these tools are going to take time and commitment to really reap the benefits. So I highly encourage you to explore the toolkit, prioritize what is important, as there are so many different aspects to this huge, very useful bunch of tools. But we need to prioritize what it is you need to implement. Not only do you need to prioritize what to implement, you also need to assign tasks and implement them in line with business needs. Remember that the toolkit, again, it's a starting point. It is not going to magically solve all governance challenges overnight. I always think of it as like a house plant. You need to first plant it, you have to water it, you have to groom it, and it's going to grow. It's going to be something that's going to need constant reiteration, reevaluation, and ensuring the tool is being used to serve the business in line with any governance plans that are put in place. The next thing we need to think about when we're creating these safe spaces is always be one step ahead of your makers. What are we going to do when our makers are ready to take off their training wheels and start to build things that go beyond our productivity? Thought really needs to be given to what kind of applications our makers are building. Where are they building them? What kind of security levels do we require for these different applications? What kind of data loss prevention policies do we need to be implementing? And we commonly see apps being put out into one of 3 different categories. This is a very common and best practice way of implementing governance. The first one is productivity. And productivity environments are going to be ones that contain applications that are built by our makers either for training purposes, testing purposes. Maybe it's a calendar app that somebody has built to help maintain their life, their kids, their schedule. It might be a calculator app that helps them calculate something that they regularly do in Excel. These are applications that are going to be important to an individual, but not a team or the organization as a whole. So these applications should really be built in environments that have really strict DLP policies. They can be thought of as the training wheels environments. Nothing that's built in there can really impact the organization. Data can't be leaked, etc. The next category we have are important apps. And these are ones where we've probably taken the training wheels off the bike, but we still have somebody there to make sure the maker doesn't fall off the bike. And these applications would be ones that are important to either a department, maybe a team, maybe they require a little bit more leniency when it comes to data loss prevention policies. If these applications go down, it's probably going to be an inconvenience to several different users, but it's not going to make the whole entire business actually crumble at one go. So these applications can all be built in this particular environment. And finally, the critical environment, and this is going to be that 20% that we talked about earlier, the ones our IT admins should be focused on, the ones that we should be putting our resources and time into. These are going to be environments that house your very large ERP organizations, your CRM systems. If these applications go down, it's very much all hands on deck to get them up and running. Trucks can't leave the organization, we're not making money, maybe we have to ensure that data is not getting out, etc. So these environments are very, very tightly locked down and maintained by IT. and we don't allow people access to these environments unless absolutely necessary, or that they've proven themselves capable to use the tools and use the applications in that environment without any kind of risk to the actual business. So thought really needs to be given to the categorization of those environments. Thought also needs to be given to what criteria do these apps actually need to meet to be placed into these environments? How do we determine what skills a maker has to be allowed access to those environments safely? Does the app require a robust application lifecycle management process? These are just some of the questions that need to be looked at and answered when we're talking about our environment, landscape, and strategy. It's always important to bring our point back to why we're implementing the Power Platform as a whole and why we're implementing our governance. And again, remember, safe space for makers. I want everybody to internalize that message today, very much making safe spaces for makers. Building a team of people to support the platform is also key. And even though the platform we're implementing, it is an IT-based platform, it is technical, it's going to require people with some technical skills to implement. It's built for people, and we also need to put people behind the organization and behind the governance of the platform. So one of the things we always recommend when talking governance for Power Platform is implementing a center of excellence. And this is separate to the Center of Excellence toolkit that we mentioned. The Center of Excellence itself is a core group of people that come together to evangelize the Power Platform, to support makers, to help grow the vision of the Power Platform at the organization. They're going to consist of multiple different kinds of people. You're going to have some IT people in there who know the technical ins and outs of the platform and how it's impacting the different areas of the business. But you're also going to need people like super users, people who have worked with the platform and know the benefits that people can get from it. And also business units, so department heads that have these business problems that they want to solve and know the Power Platform can help them solve those problems. So by creating a center of excellence with these core people, we can ensure the platform is adopted at scale, that it's supported by the right people, and that our makers are going to be power users and that they're safely kept in ways that is not impacting the business, and they can also develop and flourish and grow. And finally, this is a really key point that I like to speak to any organization that's thinking about governance today, is there really is no one size fits all. Or governance looks completely different at every single organization I go into on a daily basis. Some organizations might be beginning to implement Power Platform and don't have any makers as of yet, and their governance plan is going to look significantly different to the large financial institution I went into last week that had no DLP policies in place, and data was leaking and people were tweeting out information, and it's a nightmare. Let's bring the blood pressure right back down before we start to freak out a little bit. But no, there is no one size fits all solution. It's really important to know that everything that you do at your organization is going to be individual to your organization. But if you follow the basic rules we've outlined today and make sure you're keeping your makers at the forefront of your mind when implementing governance, try not to be too stringent or too strict with your rules. I know a lot of organizations can feel frightened by this new technology and they want to lock everything down and they're not going to reap the benefits. We really need to think about allowing our makers to grow again in that safe space. So no one size fits all solution. And that's my presentation for today, a little bit shorter than I had expected, but I'm hoping everybody's feeling calm, relaxed. Governance is no longer a scary word. We've all taken some deep breaths, and hopefully we can go ahead and finish our Friday in a very positive way. Namaste, everyone.
It's nice and relaxing. Thanks, Emma. Does anyone have any questions for Emma? Or actually, how about in the chat, do you have a governance plan at your company? Or you can come off mute.
I have to say that was an amazing presentation, Emma. That was really cool.
Thanks. Thanks for being my guinea pigs. I appreciate it. I've definitely got some notes on things I can improve, but yeah, I appreciate it. It's a little different to the usual.
I really liked it.
Cool. Yeah, if anybody wants to chat governance or talk about their approach or any problems they're having, I'm more than happy to talk about those things as well. I know I finished that presentation a little faster than needed, but always like to have time, a safe space for everyone to ask their questions.
So Emma, how about, do you have any tools that you can recommend to anybody who doesn't have a governance plan that is maybe thinking about this for the first time? I know you mentioned the Center of Excellence, but is there anything else you can recommend for new governance?
Yes. So I would highly recommend reading the Power Platform Adoption Framework, which you can find at powerplatform.af. It is going to be, it's a document that's created by the community for the community that talks about pretty much what I went through, but in great detail. I can see Nancy mentioned that they have no governance plan as of yet. So Nancy, if I remember correctly, you guys are just kind of dipping your toe in the water of Dynamics. Dynamics, I'm not sure if you're aware of this. I know you're just learning, but the Dynamics platform is actually technically part of the Power Platform. Any of the applications that you're implementing there are just very advanced model-driven apps built on the Power Platform. So highly recommend having a think about this at some point if you do decide to go the Power Platform route and allow your makers free reign to build cool things.
Thank you. Yes, they do already have free reign. Like I say, we're trying to get more resources to take advantage of that. And I have heard my boss say we've got to get a governance plan. And so that is on the radar also.
Great. Yeah, definitely recommend. There's a ton of different resources out there. If you're working with a partner, usually partners will have really good resources for you to utilize too. So yeah, Heidi, it's really important to have a think about this, especially if you have makers already making. It's you need to kind of let them grow and develop or keep the organization safe. I see Matt G also has a question. I do not have a governance approach, but will be needing to create one soon. Examples, best practices, goals one. That's a really loaded question. So again, governance looks different for every single organization that I go into. I think one of the core concepts a lot of people need is ensuring that they have a categorization for their environments and a categorization for the apps in those environments, and ensure that there are DLP policies implemented that reflect the needs of those environments. So first and foremost, the default environment is traditionally used as a productivity environment. In fact, most of my customers rename that to the personal productivity, and they will do a lot of their app in a day training in there, a lot of their testing, anything that they need to do to test out the platform and see if its capabilities without being concerned that they will impact production data or leak data, etc. DLP policies on your default environment are usually very, very strict, like you don't have Twitter or Facebook connectors or things like that in there. That's probably the first thing. And then the second thing I recommend after you've had to think about that, or maybe even beforehand, is downloading the Center of Excellence Starter Kit and getting the core components at the very least up and running. That way you're able to see a full 360 picture of all the environments in your tenant, what's being built, what connectors are being used, who's making what, how many flows are running. You really get a sense of your landscape when it comes to Power Platform. And once you have that landscape built out, you can then start to build out governance policies around how to continue allowing your makers to build, but ensure that what they're being built is visible across the organization, and also being built in a way that's not going to impact sensitive data at the organization. So hopefully that kind of helps. Michael, I can see I lost the setting button in my COE. I noticed that yesterday. I don't know where it's gone. I have to do some digging and find out, but as soon as I do that, I will find out and let you know, because I was doing that yesterday too, and I was very upset because I have a lot of settings set up, so we'll figure that out.
Cool. Good to know that I'm not the only one. Thank you.
Sure. Yeah. No, not just you. Heidi has linked to the Center of Excellence Starter Kit. There's really good documentation in there. There's a really good video that was done as well. I cannot remember the gentleman's name at Microsoft that did them. but they're really well worth following. Some of them are slightly out of date, but you get the gist of how to implement the Center of Excellence Starter Kit. It needs time. This is something a lot of people don't realize, is that you cannot just, spend an hour and I'm going to implement this solution and it will be done. That's not going to be the case. The core solution itself will probably take you at the bare minimum a day to implement correctly. There are a lot of flows in there that you need to set up. There's a lot of environment connectors. And what I would also say is, if you're hesitant to dedicate an entire environment to the Center of Excellence Starter Kit, there is a version available for teams. So if you want to implement Dataverse for teams, you can also do that. It gives you the exact same capability, only everything is in a Canvas app rather than a model-driven app, but that's well worth investigating as well. Cool. Any other questions? I'll be hanging out until the end of the UG, so if anybody wants to ping me, my Twitter is Tattooed CRM Girl, so if you have any governance questions there, you can let me know. And I'm also on the Instagrams if you want really cute pictures of my recent proposal to my partner, or cute cat pics. Both are there.
Awesome. Thank you, Emma. That was really great.
Thanks.
All right, we are going to shift gears now. So on our Q2 meeting, a lot of people wanted to learn more about approvals, specifically getting started with approvals, especially if you're coming from a Dynamics 365 background in Power Automate. So Nick, you ready to take control and teach us all about approvals?
Sure. Yeah, my presentation is nowhere near as good as Emma's, though. Emma, your presentation was amazing. And yeah, this is very amateur compared to what you've done. That was one of the best ones I've ever seen. All right, so I'm going to share my screen and get this going.
I hope you have some Zen music for us too.
No, I don't have any music. I don't have anything like that. But I am going to talk about the approval process and how that works. And approvals is built into Teams, and there's a lot of different ways. So I'll show you how to do that. But this, at the core of it, approvals is all organizations, all companies have some point where you have to ask this question of the managers, or ask the question of someone, do you approve this item? And then you have a yes or a no. So we'll get started. And first up, I am Nick Hance. You can find me on Twitter at nhance, or that's my email address. If you want, I connect with everybody on LinkedIn that I vaguely know. So feel free to shoot me a connection there. I don't know if it does anything for anyone, but it makes everybody's numbers go up. Absolutely love Power Automate approvals and automation and all of that stuff. One of the things I like the most is to help makers, to take a word out of Emma's book, to help makers create things and give them the right tools, the training, and everything necessary so that people are able to do these complex things on their own. So with that about me, let's move on to the approvals. So first up, in general, what an approval is, it's just a couple of different things. It's a link or a message that's sent to someone for approval. It can have file attachments, and then a person can approve it or reject it. And then there's a track record of everything that's happened with that approval. And then when people respond to it, they can also have comments. But I'm a very visual learner, so let's take a look at it. So this is what the approvals look like. They've got the status of it here. It's got a title, a little bit of text, and then it can have an attachment. So the attachment can either be a link or it can be an actual file. And then here's the status that gives you all the kind of updates that's happened with the approval. And then anybody responding to it can also add comments. And then you have the buttons at the bottom here that do things. So when you create an approval, you can send it directly to the people that you want to respond to it, and then anybody, as long as they're inside the organization. As soon as you create an approval, it goes out in like 1,000 different ways. So it blows up your recipients' phones and email, and sometimes on Teams. It is very loud when you send an approval. So you can see This is all for the same approval here. We've got it through email, we've got it through the phone, we've got it inside of Teams, and then this is on the web, and then this is another way inside of Teams. So it's pretty loud and pretty noisy. So you can be fairly certain that when you send an approval, management or anybody's going to figure out that they have to respond to it. So with that, the buttons that I showed you in the previous slide, what do they do? And I'm talking about these buttons down here. So when you click on the approval, you can see it marks it as approved up here. And then you have basically the timeline down here. So with this one, you can see that Heidi had requested the approval, and this is part of our blog, our blog content approval process. So what we have is a process that we write up our blog content, and then we send it internally to make sure that we've read it, we've reviewed it before we approve it for publishing. And this is exactly what we've done for this Dynamics 365 Accelerator blog post that Heidi wrote. So she'll write it up, send up the approval, and then you can see that I gave it a approval with a comment, and you can see that it was sent to 3 people. So this was sent to Heidi, Kimberly, and myself, and then I approved it, which marked the status as approved. But there's other buttons there, and the reject button is the opposite side. So this was one that we had that we had somebody reach out to us through a contact form and say, hey, we want to build you a blog article sort of thing. And it turns out it was one of those AI generated articles that looks real, but really wasn't. But they sent us like a headshot that looked like it was also AI generated. So that's kind of off topic, but this one got rejected, and it's the same process. You can see the status is rejected here, and it puts it in the permanent record, which is just this list down here, that the approval was a bad idea. So we're not going to do that one. You can also cancel the approval. So when you do that, it just makes it go away. It's different than delete because it does stick around, but it's marked as canceled. And then there's also this button here that says follow up. So if you hit that, it's going to send out another 5,000 notifications. So everybody that you sent it to gets all the notifications. So just be careful when you build the approvals, because if you send them to a lot of people, you can just bash on this follow up button, and you've got a really disruptive way to send them out. So if I click this follow up, it goes out like this, plus at least one more method. So you can see we've got all of this again at one click of a button, which that's probably the most dangerous button in there. So what do the approvals, there's different kinds of approval. So when we send this out, this one here is a blog request approval. So we want to say, hey, please take a look at this and review it. And we have approve and reject. But think about it, there's a couple different ways to do that. So you can have it where everybody has to approve. So our process is first to respond. So we don't require everyone to approve it, but you can have it so that if you send out an approval, everyone has to approve it. So, if it's sent out to a team, you need to get check off from every single person in order to have it approved. And then the same thing with reject. You can also do custom responses. So we'll get into a demo a little bit later, and that demo has some custom responses in it, but it's the same sort of thing where everybody has to respond, or you wait for one response. Basically, what this means is that when you create an approval, it's created first, and then it's in a holding period until one of these things happens. So you can use approvals in a bunch of different ways, and that's kind of goes back to those screenshots I showed you, where you have it in Teams and email and mobile phone, and then you can also use it inside of Power Automate, which makes it really, really useful. And we're going to actually go and play with that. And I should have put this slide earlier, but this is what the approvals actually look like. So when you go and create it, this is what it looks like inside of Teams. This is what it looks like on the phone. So you can see it's very, very similar looking. And this is also inside of Teams on the phone. And then this is what it looks like in email. And again, when you send these, it goes out over every single one of these methods. And then this is what it looks like inside of the approvals area inside of the flow.microsoft.com. No one's ever actually going to see this one, but for some reason they gave you a web way to do it as well. So all of that's there. And then you also have another way where you can inject these directly into Teams. So if you have, imagine this is a Teams chat, you can actually have this button kind of appear, and this is the way we've implemented some of ours. So I showed off the blog approval process that we're using for all of our blog things, but there's a lot of different ideas that you can use for it. What you can do is, because you can use it with Power Automate, you can have some ways that we use it is when a form is submitted on the website, we use that to make sure that we're not getting spam. And then you can also, we've seen people use it with file attachments. So, you know, you get a file attached and then you want to make sure that somebody signs off to make sure that the file is good. You can use this to attach it to a file, be it like a CAD file or any kind of file. You can then have others inside the organization say, yes, that file is good, and have a record of it alongside all the other approvals. You can do it with quotes before sending them to a customer. This is the one I've talked about. And then customer requests kind of flips it to where if you're using a form on a website, you can actually have those come into customer service, and you can have that get attached to an approval process internally. So that's a way you can use approvals externally through like a web form. And then if you look at custom responses, you aren't limited to approve or reject, which makes it really, really interesting because you use the same concept of approve and reject, but you can add in a bunch of different replies. So we're going to get into a demo and play with that. We're going to make a flow that requests a to-do item. So this is going to be a brilliant idea that's going to make us billionaires. We're going to replace people inside the organization and just write a manager. We're going to make a manager app that does all of the management things, and we're going to do that right here. So we're going to send this item from upper management to the workers, and then the workers put a response in, and then they have to do the work to it because that's what they do. So let's go and play with that here. And this is how I'm doing approvals inside of Power Automate. So this is one that I've built to do that. So for this one, we're going to say, here is the task. We're actually just going to run this first, and then I'll go into how it all works. Make this large. So we're running the task now, and this is going through the approval process. And like I said, this is our manager app. So what would we like to do? We need we need to get covers on our TPS reports. So put the cover on your TPS report. So we'll send that, and that's going to go out. This is pre-configured to send it off to a couple of people. So we've sent it off there, and then we'll see the create a flow runs. And once that does, I should be able to see it inside of our approvals app here. So that created the approval here. And you can see management needs you to do a thing, comes across. And as soon as that shows up inside of my environment here. Okay, so here is it inside of Teams, which I should be able to make larger as well. So this then comes across in Teams. Management needs you to do a thing, and it says, hello, you must do the following task. Put the cover on your TPS report. So this one has some custom buttons. So rather than the approve, reject, we have a couple of different options down here. So we can either say, I can do it right now, I need more time, what you're asking me to do is impossible, or are we sure this is legal? So then we can put all of these things in here. And so I need the cover on the TPS report. I can do it right now. And we'll just say, you got it off, and submit that in. So now that approval has gone into the next step. So you can see that is got a response that says I can do it right now. And since this is a flow, you can actually see it coming through. So that wait for approval is where it was stuck. And you can see that it was sent over to me. And the response it got was, I can do it right now. And it also has all of these other options in here. So from here, you can then build out a flow that says, hey, we need to, we can check what this output is and then do other things inside the flow with it. And I'll show you how that works. So when we needed to do the flow here, we created this is just a manually run flow that creates the approval. And what we did is we did the custom response, and you have a couple different options here. This looks just like that slide that I showed you, where, sorry, the puppy is chewing on things. Let me just get that dog real quick. Sorry about that. All right, so these are the different approval types. And then this is the custom response. So I chose custom responses, and you can see the 4 options that I put in there. And then we had the title that came across. And if we go back and take a look at that, you can see the title came across with management needs you to do a thing. And then I had it assigned to just Heidi and myself. And you can see this is the template that came from there, mixed in with that to-do item that we filled out in the beginning. So that was what created this approval. And as soon as that step inside of Power Automate executed, this approval was sent out. So both Heidi and myself received those 5,000 notifications across the different areas there. So then that step is completed and it waits. So this step, all it does is it waits for some action to happen. And from there, we can do things with it. So if we wanted to do something along the lines of, if we can say, if the approval output, which we'll get from waiting for the approval, if the outcome is equal to, I can do it right away. And we're going to do this a little smarter. We'll just copy this. So if it's equal to this, now we can start to automate it. So now we can say, hey, this is done. We can send a notification to management that says the task will be done today. So we can do that, and now we have a really simple approval process that is just done with Power Automate. That as soon as you run this, it would send off the approval, and then you'll wait for the response. And as long as you hit "I can do it right now," then this notification will be sent off that says the task will be done today. So you can do that with all the other options. So if somebody were to say, "Are you sure this is legal?" you can send it over to the legal department and get approval from them using the Power Automate steps here. So that's the way you can kind of use this for some creative things. And I'm going to show you another one that we've done. Then this is the live one. It's on our contact form. So we talked about the blog approval and how that one works. What this one is a when the form is submitted on our website, we create an approval, which is just the approve reject. So this is the first to respond. And then when they come through with this contact detail. So let me show you what that looks like inside of our approvals dashboard. So here's one that we got this morning that is running from this process. So it comes in through the website, and then it goes into the spam check. So we want to check that this contact form is valid. So this was sent to me because I'm on the list of recipients here where it's assigned to, and you can see this is the content here rendered up in here. So we have it. It came from starts in for mobile development, and it's a question about a blog with Twitter updates. So from here, what we can do is we can say, hey, is this spam or is it not spam? And this one looks like spam. So what we're going to say is, no, this is spam. So we'll hit reject. And then now what happens is it created the approval, and then it sent this as a flowbot to a channel, which is different from what I showed you. So let me show you where that comes into inside of our teams here. So what that looks like is right here with the blog approvals. No, it's not it. Where's that one go?
The sales general channel.
Okay, yep, there it is. So we actually had a couple that came through. So this is how it put it into Teams. So here we have it came into the Teams channel, which is what this step is doing. So when we create the approval inside of Power Automate, that sends it out over all of the methods that I showed you, but it also creates this adaptive card, which is one of these, which is what this one is. And then we can put that into a Teams message here, which then can be responded to by anybody. So from here, it's not limited to those who it was assigned to. Now it's opened up to anybody who responds to it. So I already clicked on reject, but this didn't open yet. So this then is in the channel here. Unfortunately, the styling side of Teams doesn't look as nice as the rest. So the wait for approval holds up the flow until that comes back. And then from here, if we have our outcomes approved, then it adds it into our CRM as a new lead. If not, then we don't do anything with it. So that spam check runs multiple times a day. Every time somebody fills out our contact form, it runs through this entire process. So you can kind of see there's a demo of the two different approval types that we've used. We have another one that does the blog approvals, but it's the same sort of thing. It's very simple, start an approval and then get some feedback and then do something with the outcome based on what you've got from it. So that is the approval process. I don't know if I've gone through that too quickly, but that's all I had prepared. And I just wanted to kind of open this up now so we can talk about approvals and, any ideas that you guys might have for building approvals. What are they?
Nick, there's a question in the chat from Emma. Can you handle approvals hierarchy? For example, Emma needs to approve, then Nick, then Heidi. I posted a link to the Microsoft documentation that talks about sequential approvals, but I don't know if you wanted to add anything else to that.
Yeah, you can do it with that. There's a few different ways. Just like it was mentioned earlier, there are many ways to do things in here. So I didn't see the chat here. I'm just checking up on some of these. Were there any other questions that came in? I don't want to spend time going back.
Not yet.
Okay, cool.
Not yet, but everyone, you can post your questions here or ideas or how you're using approvals. It's fun to hear about that.
Yeah, that sequentials one is the same thing. It's using this conditions on it. So the sequentials would just be wait for an approval. You'd send it to the manager first, and then from there you'd have to follow this chain down. So you can add another condition here that says create the approval again. So you can either reuse the approval or send off different ones. Ashley asked, when should you use adaptive cards? You can use them for a lot of different things, and that kind of gets away from approvals, but they're really neat. So I'm going to go on that kind of joke thing I've talked about with the adaptive card with the manager stuff. And here's another one that's using adaptive cards. So this is a little bit different, whereas we have, this is just doing a Teams thing. So when somebody puts something into our channel called manager, then it would create this adaptive card. So this step inside of Power Automate is really cool because if you click on edit adaptive card, you can now see you have this here. So this is the same sort of thing, only it's not using the approvals. This is designing what your adaptive card would look like. So it's the same sort of thing. So this one has the, I need more time. What you asked me to do is impossible, or are we sure this is legal? And you can just drag these things in to make your own adaptive cards. They're really, really neat. And this is one of the few things inside of Power Automate that has this like extra editor sort of thing. It's really cool to see how it's growing. But you can see this one has that, and then it has the adaptive card. Once somebody puts a response, it updates the messages saying leadership will know. So Todd mentions that the approver doesn't have to leave their inbox to approve the request and keep the business moving forward. So that's correct. If we look back at the email one, here, when you're inside of the email, you can click approve or reject entirely within your email. And that, then the manager or whoever can do the approval from directly inside the email and keep things moving. They don't have to go any further. They can click on a link and it opens in a new link. But there's no other steps. Approvals are like a good way to inject humans into your automations. Yeah, cool. Yeah, the adaptive cards are really neat. Really, really fun to play with. And there's a whole lot of other options for that. There's like a whole adaptive card editor as well. But that looks to be what's built into Power Automate with this edit adaptive card. So that's really neat. And you can see we can have, based on the responses here, we can have other things that happen. So what this one is doing is putting the adaptive card in that says, anytime you put a message in the channel, the bot comes in and say, hey, I can help you do your work. And then it says, do you need more time? Do you need legal or something along those lines? So yeah, that's a really fun process, but I'm trying to stay somewhat focused on approvals because we can jump into the rabbit hole pretty deep pretty quickly.
I found approvals is a great way to get your organization started with Power Automate. If you've been kind of resisting it, it's very easy to implement, and it has a wonderful success rate in user adoption for managers. I think I saw in the chat, maybe it was Emma added some, yeah. You build an app to handle approvals. There's something about Todd put it in here. Like, you don't have to go to your inboxes to read everything that's coming through. Managers, I mean, some of us are probably managers, right? We tend to miss something. And it's nice, especially if you have like managers who are on the go that have a phone with them, to just have a little button pop up on your phone. You can do a quick quote review process and approve, reject, and keep it going, and you're not a holdup anymore. So that's cool.
Yeah. It's really easy to roll these things out on your own. So if you're a maker, like Emma had mentioned, you can put these things out and then pass them along. And then if you guys are using Teams daily, you can see how you can inject these right into the stream there.
I have a question. I think it was our friends at IBX who had really wanted to learn about approvals in a future session. Did you guys implement anything? Is this something you're thinking about implementing?
Yeah, Heidi, the team did put in some approval processes. So there was a couple requests from the org, our sales and underwriting teams, really around when we're producing renewals for customers, when those are getting produced, and there's requests to say, hey, we want to get them earlier. So Krishna and Aiden did a great job of building those approvals, and it's worked really well. The one use case that we were actually, that when we were talking about it, was more around our performance guarantees. And the one item that we couldn't do, and Nick, you might have covered this, but maybe you could give me some insight, is we want to get the approval, but we also want them to give us a green, yellow, red confidence level that we could like automatically port back into the system. So I know back when we talked about this, somebody had said, no, it's really just approval and they can put in comments. Is there ability now to say approval with this confidence level, like a specific value?
You might want to look more at the adaptive card for extra things like that. It's similar. So approvals are built using sort of the same type of framework. It's just a simplified version. So if you're okay to use the approval process, and this is what it looks like inside of Teams, then you're good to use it. But if you need more, then then you're going to want to use something else. Approvals just gives you kind of a heads up if you're going down the simple.
Right. Got it.
But yeah, this is how you build them. So if you wanted to build like a one-off approval, then you can do it from here, where you can have, just a basic approval. So if I wanted to send it to Heidi that says, ensure the meeting is going well, then we can have it go over to Heidi, and from here we can just say, all right, you approved today's meeting. And as soon as I do that, now it's sent off to Heidi, and she's going to see it pop up on her phone. So that approval then will head off to her, and then she'll get it and be able to use it from there.
What's she going to say?
I don't know. But anytime you wanted to do more than like a one-off approval, then you can start to use Power Automate for that, which is what we showed off in this thing. So if you use Power Automate to build the approvals, now if you have a specific type of approvals, you can start to automate all of that. So rather than the one-off approval here, where I just send off an approval about today's meeting, which should have sent, right? I don't see it anywhere.
Also note, if you do enjoy this and the mobility aspect, you'll need to download the Flow app on your phone.
But yeah, if you're gonna do it with with content coming from another source, or to go around some kind of logic, you'll need to use Power Automate for it, and then just use the steps in here. So if we look at the approval step, you can see these are the different options available for it. So from here, we just have, create an approval, and then you can also do wait for an approval, or you can combine both of them into a single action here where it starts and waits, which basically means, hey, create this and then do this wait step at the same time. There are no ways to trigger it, so approvals is used just through these 3 actions inside of Power Automate.
Is anyone
any other
else?
questions?
Oh yeah, I was going to ask if anyone else is using them. And what for? Emma's using them a lot. Cool.
Oh, yes, I'd be happy to do an adaptive cards one next. You can look at that silly manager app that I built, which probably wouldn't go for well in some organizations.
Nick, have you guys seen people use this for maybe marketing campaigns, where we have I know you spoke that you guys use that kind of internally. We have a use case for our provider area that they do a lot of marketing out to our provider network. And so they want to build pretty much their entire kind of workflow and process and approvals right within Dynamics as a potential. Is this something that is a component of that, you think?
Well, what do you like? What would be approved?
So the collateral and the just timeline and all that stuff.
Yes. In fact, that's how we use it internally. We have an app that does that. So this can also be hooked up to Canvas apps pretty easily. So if I can pull that up, I can show you how that looks. Let's get over there. So we have a chat room here that is all about blog approval requests. So you can see all of our blogs are in here, and then we have approvals that come in. And we've actually built a little Canvas app here that is just very simple. All it does is it fires off a flow. So you just, you'd write up your blog post or your marketing content, put in the title, and then you'll click on Get Reviewed. And then what happens is it puts this approval into the chat here. And then you can see we write about all the new connectors that come out. So from here we had a bunch of discussion around a particular connector. I think Troy, this might be one of yours. So the Power Automate connector came out, and then we'll have discussion back and forth. And from there we have the approval. If it's approved, then we get the results updated inside of it here. And you can see that it also has kind of a follow-up approval here that whoever sent it has a chat that goes in. So now we have a record inside of our teams, but we also have a record over here inside of the approvals app, which is on the left. So if you go into the approvals app on the left here, now you'll also have a record of all of them here, but this is kind of mixed in along the other types of approvals you have. We like to, because we have different approval flows, we like to use our teams to do that, because this is kind of general. It has most of everything else is in here as well. Cool. Yeah. Any other? Do you guys have any questions or ideas of approvals? Hoping this is helpful for everybody. No, stop it.
Kidnaps the dog.
Right? Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Nick. That was a really cool presentation. I'm obviously a big fan of the approvals part. And like I said, if you aren't using Power Automate yet, it's very nice. We got a question from Ashley. Ooh, recommendations including SharePoint with your approvals.
Yes. So you can do it with the list items. So I know you have statuses on inside of SharePoint. This is a way to externalize that. So if you have a list inside of SharePoint and you wanted to manage a status or you wanted to manage list items, you can put that directly in there so that you can now have, kind of this SharePoint kind of weaves in and out of the approval process. So you can make it so that when a SharePoint item comes in, and we can build it extremely quickly. So if we were to do like, a flow here that says when an item is created in SharePoint, then you can have it come in. And I don't think I have anything set up in here, but then you would have, once that item is created, then you can create the approval, and from there you can use the SharePoint to figure out what management or what the external user is. And when I say external, I mean maybe not within SharePoint, but you can then have that update from the approval process and then go back in and then update your SharePoint item. So from there, you can then go back to your SharePoint item and then update the list item. Is that helpful?
Hey, I think it'd be easier if I just unmute myself and talk.
Sure.
Yeah, no, that's super helpful. So specifically when it comes to SharePoint, so SharePoint, I have I would say a department, SharePoint page. I want to get an approval based off of a specific folder that I'm going to be uploading a file once a month. So I know you mentioned a list. I know there's also flows for when a new form is created within SharePoint, a new list is created if it was modified. If I'm specifically wanting to call out a new file within the folder on SharePoint, how do I call that out, or how do I design and set that up so it's not necessarily in a list, it's in the SharePoint is created from a Teams room.
Okay.
I'm in that Teams room on SharePoint, and I'm uploading a monthly report that needs to go through approvals.
Okay. So then you would have, when a file is created in a folder, then you can have that bring in the approval process. So once it's created, you can have it go through the approval process and then update some other area or have the list in approvals there, maybe update it inside of a Teams channel or something. So you can see, hey, these are the items that are approved. Does that answer your question?
It does, yeah. I'm trying to think when I upload that file, if I want that file link to be included through the approvals, so it takes them directly into it. From there, is it just copying, linking the attachment?
So, yep, you can do that with the approval. So if you do the start and wait approval, then you'll have to first pick what kind of approval. So we'll just say first to respond. Then you can have the item link in there. So you can put the link in from SharePoint here. So you can have, that's actually got the file content. So you can actually attach the content here. So you can actually have the file content go into it. And then this would be, like a SharePoint file. Actually, you probably want to use the actual file name. So you would use the file name here. And that would then create the approval with the file attached to it, which I don't actually know where these are stored, because you'll essentially
Yeah,
have
that's kind of where I'm at right now, because what I do is currently I'm working on a flow that every month I have to submit a file of transactions completed in D365, and it's once a month. It's a set date, but there's a lot of tedious processes. So I'm trying to eliminate that. I want to go in, attach the completed report. From there, I want it to notify, finance that we've completed this task. I want him to approve it prior to making everyone aware that we have completed these actions. So I want him to kind of, it's a safety net, approve this, review it. If you agree with it, then we're going to submit it to the Teams channel and notify that productions completed their task, their monthly task items. So it's this point right here is how do you really call out that attachment? Which one do you need to pick to represent what you've uploaded?
If you're doing something that people can change, you probably want to use a link. And that would be, I think you can get links to the files. There's another action you can use for getting a link to it. But if you can, then you can send a link and then they have just that one file to update. Or if you can send off the file here, you can do it that way. But again, then you have two copies. You have the one in SharePoint and the one that's attached here. I don't really know where these are. I don't know where these are stored, but if it's okay to have the two copies, then you can do that. But it should be really easy to build this process through Power Automate. I think you could probably get a beta version within an afternoon.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah, I'll definitely use the link. I think it's probably safer route.
Yeah, if you want, just shoot me, connect with me and I can help you out further.
Awesome. Yeah, I went and reached out to you on LinkedIn already. So
awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Cool. Yeah, and this can really help with the governance stuff that Emma was talking about as well. You can use this to sort of set some boundaries around things, although it's a bit different than the official governance, but it seems like it would go really well with what Emma was talking about. Emma, it was great to have you here.
Awesome. Any other questions for Nick? We're ending early today. Friday, get out early. One thing I do want to talk about, and you can feel free to put your questions in for Nick or anyone else. Our next meeting, we're going to keep going with our third Friday of the month cadence because it seems to work well, which puts us at, believe it or not, Friday, December 17th for our next meeting. We'll plan on still having it virtual because who knows what the world's going to look like. If that changes, we'll let you know. Make sure you join our community so you'll see all of the information there. Is there anything anybody wants to talk about in our next meeting or any topics you'd like to discuss that we haven't talked about? I mean, it sounds like adaptive carts might be one, but is there anything else in Dynamics or Power Platform that you guys want to learn more about? You can think about it and message me later. Otherwise, you're going to get whatever I want to talk about and learn about.
I'm going to reach out and ask if is Troy still here? Troy Taylor? Would love to see his. It looks like he left. If you wanted to talk about his connection.
I mean, we could certainly do something on Power Automate connectors. We know quite a few people who've built those, so that could be interesting. Well, I'm going to put my email in the chat here. I can type it properly. And if you have anything that you think of that you'd like to learn more about, let us know. And again, there's a lot of really cool learning opportunities coming out. So just to recap, you have DynamicsCon, which is dynamicscon.com, free registration. They're half-day trainings. I think it's Central Time for everything, but check on their website. And I think it's our time. It will be 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. or maybe 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. So check that out if you want. It's, again, half days, 4 days next week. I'm going to be talking on Tuesday if you want to check out my session. It's for system admins. And it's about the new Maker Portal design experience for model-driven apps. We've got Summit coming up in a month, and I know Emma's speaking and Nick's speaking. I don't know if anyone else on the call has any sessions, but there's a lot of cool stuff there. That one is not free, but it's very well worth the money if you can get your managers to approve on that. Maybe you can write an approval flow to get your managers to approve it. It could be fun. Nick could help you if you have questions. Otherwise, there's always resources at Microsoft Learn. You can go through those learning paths. Those are really good, especially if you want to learn more about the topics covered today. Oh, it looks like we have a comment from Krishna.
No,
Folder
it's just
metadata.
yeah, it's just an example of how to actually get the file within Flow because we're kind of doing the same thing. So you would need to get the folder metadata, and then once you have that, you could actually identify the file that you want to include in that approval process. I just wanted to share that.
Awesome. You probably made Ashley very happy.
Very happy. Thank you.
All
That was
right. Well, I
awesome.
guess if anyone has questions or you want to talk about some things that you're working towards, I can stay on till 11:30. I'm going to stop the recording now. And if you guys have to jump,